Welcome back to theCUBE's live stream here in San Diego for Finops X 2026. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE, with my co-host Paul Nishwai for theCUBE Research. We're breaking down the AI value, AI for Finops, and all that's in between that's driving a lot of the value and also measuring the cost. Tokens are here, tokenomics is the new foundation. It's all kind of expanding super fast. Sabapathy Arumugam is here. Chief Technology Officer at CoreStack. Saba, thank you for coming on. Great.
Thank you for having me here.
Great to have a CTO on, because it's a lot of engineering conversation. My first question is, on the AI value, the theme this week is, it's just an engineering culture. Rising super fast, building the tools and platforms to enable the ability to manage the chaos that is costs from cloud growth, but now you got the AI growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the industry is seeing the enormous growth in cloud in the last 10 years, but in the last 4 years, we see the AI is actually taking the world by storm.
Right.
In Finops for Cloud, it's all about optimizing the spend on compute, network, storage, and we know what applications that we are running, and we know what is the value of the application. So it is somewhat relatable to see what is the investment that we are making for an application and what is the investment that we are making for cloud. But when it comes to AI, we are paying for intelligence, right? We are not paying for compute here, we are paying for intelligence, and the intelligence is measured in terms of token. Agents, inferencing, all of that. So what is the AI intelligence that you are getting, and what is the business value of the intelligence is the biggest problem the industry is facing today. Yeah. If we have to get the value of the intelligence, it needs to provide the business value.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all about getting the attribution of the intelligence to the business value.
How is it different? How is the AI spend different than cloud in this new era? Managing tokens, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, the foundation models are emerging, and there are multiple models actually keep coming, and what model to use for what kind of intelligence that you need. You can easily spin up your prompt, and then it may cost $100, right? The value of the output, is it worth $100? That is the biggest challenge that is going on. And when you are running a multi-agentic model, you can have as many number of prompts, but what prompts, what model it is being used, and what is the memory that uses, and what is the output that we are getting. I think that's the biggest challenge that is going on with the current trend.
So when we're looking at the differences, I like where you were going with that, because it kind of changes up like the bridging the gap between the old and the new, right? It's kind of like that conversation. But when we think about that, managing these AI spend, the tokens, et cetera, everything that comes along that you were just talking about, it is different than managing traditional cloud or traditional data center FinOps opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right? So like previously, and even with this event has evolved over the years, right? We got an understanding of cloud control, cloud cost control. We understand that, right? And we know, and if you're not doing it, you can kind of figure out how to do it pretty easily. This is different though.
Correct.
What's different about it?
The difference is, basically in a SaaS world, you're paying for subscription.
Yes.
In an AI world, there is a subscription and there is a token, right? When you are consuming a token, what kind of, there are multiple applications trying to consume this API endpoints, and then the token consumption happen. Or if a developer using AI to develop, and they are basically getting the context of the entire code, doing a code generation and all of that. So how much of token consumption happening for each of the use cases, and how do we track the token efficiency against the output that we are getting, right? It is all about the key performance indicator. What is the outcome that we get? It's all about business outcome rather than the intelligence.
No, I agreed with that, but what do you think about, now this is something that's been kind of a theme that's been going on for the last couple of days at least, is the fact that there's a different cost that should be associated for different token usage.
Correct.
For example, innovation versus production, right?
Correct.
And you want to be able to innovate so you can add to production, but that cost of innovation, it should be a development or a sandbox environment. It shouldn't cost the same. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Like, when it comes to production, we need to attribute it to the application and what is the business value of that application. But when it comes to innovation, we should not be stopping the acceleration of innovation, but at the same time, there are too many experimentation happens, right?
Yeah.
What experiments provide what value? I think that is the biggest gambling
ROI,
that happens, right? Everybody wants to use AI, and everybody wants to create business value on AI, and for that there are multiple experiments happen. Which experiments provides the value? I think that's the biggest question that is going on. So I think at an enterprise level, there needs to be attribution for production workload separately. For innovation and research, there needs to be a separate attribution, and how much of budget that is required for innovation, and how much are we spending on the AI, and what is the outcome of the experiment, that needs to be attributed, right?
Sab, I want to ask you about the cloud AI transition in context to governance. We saw with data lakes, governance was a real enabler, a lot of agentic activity happening. Agents will be big in Finops and tokenomics. What's the role of governance, specifically on how that ties in with Finops? Because we heard tagging, attribution you just mentioned, governance and identity, all these things matter. How do you look at that as a CTO for this world? Because a lot of build-outs coming fast.
Yeah.
What's the role of governance?
I think we feel that the AI governance or agentic governance is way more important than a cloud governance, right? Way more important than just actually looking at a cost. The reason is actually, when we are looking at agent, there is a non-human identity being created. I think every human can go and create multiple agents, and we basically bring in a lot of data as a context to the agent, right? So in terms of governance for AI, we need to look at security, we need to look at the data leaks, we need to look at the life cycle of the agent, we need to look at the attribution of the agent. So the entire things need to be looked at to governance. Basically, the cost for AI is just one element of it, but when we look at governance, it includes security, data leaks, attributions, everything actually. That's what governance means, right? You need to be able to reason why you are running the agent, and what data that you're giving as a context to the agent, and are we giving any confidential information, are we giving any personal information? All the time we see that we basically put some credit card information, right? How do we avoid such data leaks being provided as a context? Some of the passwords, we should not be sending passwords to the agent, right? So these are all the elements that needs to come under the governance umbrella.
Yeah, so it comes back to the conversation of what's suitable when it comes to FinOps, what's suitable for AI, and where you need human judgment to kind of be put in place, right? Because some things are just not ready for AI, right? So I think that's where you were going with that. From a governance perspective, you still need to have a human in the loop to make sure things are working. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I think the human in the loop is very, very important for AI. AI need to be looked at for intelligence, analysis, reasoning, but the decision making needs to be with the human.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I think where AI helps is providing the recommendation along with the reasoning for human to take decision faster.
Yeah.
It's all about decision making, and AI helps in accelerating the decision making for the human, but the human needs to take the final decision based on the business context, because the human knows what is the business is all about, a lot more context that human have. Yeah, LLMs are trained with a lot of data, but the business context the human has, so that AI provides, based on all the context, it provides the reasoning, and the human takes the final decision based on the business context.
That brings up a lot of the conversation we've been having. It's been cloud and AI have been two key things, the data, but with the explosion of tokens, the on-premises is now impacted, but it's hybrid computing, so it's distributed. Control planes are becoming important, but to get the cost across the environments, Talk about the multi-environment cross-connection, because I can have a lot of cloud, I can have now a lot of on-prem, because a lot of data there too. You mentioned unlocking that proprietary or unique data. That's the crown jewels, that's the value, and the users are adopting. So it's like a perfect storm for value creation, but now you got, okay, where's the costs? Do I bring it on-prem? Do I have an AI factory? So there's a lot of cross-environment and cross-use case, SaaS versus headless. What's your thoughts on those two things?
I think like, the AI is accelerating this multi-cloud, multi-model, hybrid environments to life, right? And it needs to be, right? So currently, every AI application that are built now is a multi-agentic model. The reason why multi-agentic models are built is actually, each model provides certain different efficiency, right? For some use cases, Cloud gives a better efficiency, OpenAI gives better efficiency, or a Gemini gives better efficiency. So when the applications are built, they need to be able to leverage the different model for the different use cases that they are building. There is model on the one side, and the data security is on the other side, right? When organization looks at the confidentiality of the data, they want to maintain certain data within their network. That's where the hybrid computing comes into play. I think now the neo clouds are coming. The neo clouds are primarily coming for the data sovereignty of the enterprises. The enterprises want to maintain their own data within their infrastructure and use the compute from hyperscalers, but my data resides within my GPU infrastructure. So, and there are SaaS applications that are being used. So basically the combination of SaaS, the neo clouds, private environment, all of them plays a major role in getting the value.
I have to ask you, because I love where this is going, because I want you to explain the difference between data management in the old way, because we've seen governance in data management.
Correct.
But I won't say niche, but in that segment. Governance is now mainstream because of agents and the values created. What's the contrast and difference between data management of yesterday and today?
I think that's a good question. Actually, earlier the data management is all about the data that I have in my database, the data that I have in my file system, right? Now, the data governance is about what is the data that I am feeding to my agents, right? So earlier, a lot of this context actually remained within the enterprise infrastructure. Now every user in an organization have access to the agent. So the context that we are giving to the agent is not only coming from the files, not only coming from the databases. The user can upload all of this information, right? How do we protect the data that is actually flowing to the agent from the end user? There is an application-wise data governance. There is an end user-wise data governance, right? The end users can put any of the enterprise data into the cloud. How do we look at this data and how do we avoid the leak is one of the major problems on the data governance.
Intelligence comes in handy here, because agents are basically workers. So imagine data management having more customers.
Correct, exactly.
That's what's happening.
Absolutely.
So you got to have a different mechanism, different intelligence. They're human triggered, machine triggered, a lot more data management and activities.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the value of the agent depends upon the context. The context resides in the data. And I think what data that we feed into the agent plays a major role in getting the required intelligence, and at the same time not compromising the security and feeding the data, all the data to the agent.
Yeah, but this is also related to when you have, this is a board level conversation because there's financials involved, there's lots of, and there's also discussions about like, should these, should execs are asking, should we invest more in AI, right? What we see in our own research is 25% of IT's budget in 2025 was dedicated to AI projects. Okay, that's fair. That was about experimentation and innovation, right? But 26 a year of implementation, right? Now organizations are going, should I invest more? And from a FinOps perspective, where can the response be from, related to FinOps, related to the FinOps practices? How do you get the credibility to say, yes, this is what you should be investing in?
as the Finops Foundation is moving in the right direction of not just looking at the business value for cloud, it's a business value for the technology investment that includes cloud, SaaS, and AI. I mean, that's the direction Finops is going, and that's what the industry needs. From an exec standpoint, what is very important is the visibility of where we are spending the money and the attribution to the various functions that includes what is my spend on production, what is my spend on research, what is my spend on developments. The attribution is very important. Then the third thing is, what is the business outcome for this technology investment, right? Like, if we are spending this 20% on AI, what is the business outcome that we are getting from this 20%? If the company's revenue remains the same, what is the value of this 20% investment, right? So end of the day, what the budget that you're allocating for AI need to provide the revenue growth for the enterprises, right? How do we measure the business outcome for the AI experimentation, the AI spend that we are doing, is the most important factor for the Finops practitioner. And the practitioner need to roll up this data and then provide to the exec for taking the right decision on where to invest to get the required value, right? Like, the AI spend can be on various things. You can be on the research, it can be on the development, code development, or providing certain output from a business standpoint. Where do we spend this budget to get the required business outcome? That data needs to be provided to the execs. Yeah.
Saba, great to have you here. Thanks for sharing that great insight. Love the CTO perspective. Governance, the center of the value proposition. Data management's exploding on mainstream, real time. More users, more agents.
Yes,
different behavior patterns. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
thank you,
it.
absolutely.
I'm John Furrier with Paul Nishwati with theCUBE. We're getting all the data here. We're like agents of data here on theCUBE at FinOps. Hopefully it's on the money. Thanks for watching.